Hi, I'm Emery Oldram, a PhD student at the University of Manchester. It is Friday the 14th of May and this is your Fusion News Update. Today's stories include 1. Mind-boggling magnets could unlock plentiful power. 2. Fusion reactor waylaid by latest waves of COVID pandemic. 3. MIT, on course to create a fusion power plant. 4. Ghana needs nuclear energy to spur development. 5. Fusion Industry Association announces independent incorporation and expansion. And there are some bonuses for you at the end too. 1. Mind-boggling magnets could unlock plentiful power. This BBC article is about two private fusion companies, Commonwealth Fusion Systems and Tokamak Energy. And it's talking about the work they're doing on advanced magnet concepts from high-temperature superconductors. Later this year, Dr. Bob Mugard and his team at Commonwealth Fusion Systems will test a groundbreaking magnet that they say can make that leap forward. Weighing 10 tons, the D-shaped magnet is big enough for a person to step through. Around 300 kilometers of high-temperature superconductor tape is rounded into that D-tape. At Tokamak Energy, Dr. Greg Brittles has spent the last 5 years developing high-temperature superconductor technology and is currently helping to build a demonstrator that will have a series of powerful magnets working together and interacting. The article discusses the spherical tokamak shape used by Tokamak Energy. Research suggests such a design will generate more energy for each unit of power it uses than the conventional tokamak. Dr. David Kingham, one of the founders of Tokamak Energy and currently executive vice chairman, says, "The real challenge is commercial fusion, and that's really what's driving us. Why we're focused on the spherical tokamak is because of the long-term commercial advantages." The article finishes by saying that these compact designs, such as the ones pursued by Tokamak Energy and CFS, are attracting investment, with the private industry betting that these are going to be viable commercial ventures. 2. Fusion reactor waylaid by latest waves of COVID pandemic. Bloomberg Green reports that ITER, the world's biggest science project, is facing delays and rising costs due to supply chain issues caused by waves of the COVID pandemic. ITER Director General Bernard Bijot said at a media briefing on Monday, "Despite our best efforts, I expect we will have some delay." They expect to have a full impact estimate by the end of the year, and that's probably going to include some higher cost estimates. 3. MIT, on course to create a fusion power plant. An interesting story about Commonwealth Fusion Systems and MIT's Spark reactor. This details the way that student groups at MIT work together to form the basis of Spark, based on the ARC and Vulcan designs that have been done previously. The students are split up into groups to work on different aspects of the reactor. This style continues to this day, with MIT becoming a breeding ground for many new fusion scientists. Dennis White, director of the Plasma Science and Fusion Center at MIT, was quoted saying, "If you give young people the time, the tools, and the imaginative space to work together towards meaningful goals, it's hard to imagine a more powerful force. The class and the innovation provided by the collective student effort has changed my worldview and, I believe, the prospects for fusion energy." A truly uplifting quote and a really, really optimistic tone talking about fusion energy. I hope we can find loads of optimism in lots of stories like this. 4. Ghana needs nuclear energy to spur development. This story in All Africa discussed an interesting development at the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission, in which their Director General, Professor Benjamin Nyako, discussed nuclear energy, including fusion, and how it's going to be really useful for them to achieve their sustainable development goals. With only one nuclear reactor on the continent, in South Africa, this represents a big shift. Wider adoption of nuclear power can only be beneficial to both the industry and worldwide climate goals. The Director General, Benjamin Nyako, said, "Industries drive the economy of every nation, and for industries to thrive, energy will be required, and not just any form, but a dense, stable, clean, and affordable energy, and that's where nuclear comes in." We're not saying that other energy sources should be abandoned. What we're saying is that it should be in addition to Ghana's energy mix, just as South Korea and other developed countries have done and are enjoying the benefits. This shows the excitement for greater nuclear adoption and how it's going to be used not only in nuclear powers currently, but in ones of the future in order to achieve sustainability and lots of climate goals all over the world. 5. Fusion Industry Association announces independent incorporation and expansion. And a bit of our own news. The Fusion Industry Association has officially incorporated as a newly independent, non-profit organisation representing the private fusion industry. It will continue to be led by Andrew Holland, along with the UK director Melanie Wimbridge. and has a new board of directors, including representation from Commonwealth Fusion Systems, TE Technologies, and General Fusion. The FIA currently has 25 member companies pursuing commercialization of fusion energy, and affiliate members including companies, NGOs, and institutions that support the growth of the global fusion energy economy. These changes will strengthen the FIA at a really critical time, just as President Biden announces ambitious and important decarbonisation goals in a way to mitigate some of the really terrible risks of climate change. And now some bonuses. Firstly, this month's International Atomic Energy Authority bulletin was completely focused on fusion. There are various articles to read, from what is fusion and why is it so difficult to achieve, to safety in fusion and why fusion needs enterprises and startups, plus an interview with the Fusion Industry Association's Melanie Wimridge. If you liked our magnet story earlier, then you might like Inside Science's article entitled Room Temperature Superconduction, Holy Grail or Red Herring. It's not about fusion specifically, it's about superconductivity, but overall it's a really interesting piece and a great look into the kind of innovation going on around fusion materials. And finally, a shameless self-plug for the Fusion News Extra podcast, in which we spoke to TE Technologies CTO, Artem Smirnov, all about their most recent breakthrough that we discussed last time out on Fusion News. Their CTO, Artem Smirnov, spoke to the Fusion News Extra podcast, and I got to sit down with him and discuss the news, what it meant for TE's goals, and what he was hoping to see in the coming years of the fusion industry. There's also a big article looking into the TE lab on CNBC, so we'll put a link to that in the notes too. That's everything for today. All the links to the articles, the bonuses, and the podcast that we mentioned are all going to be sitting in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.